Hey guys, welcome back to the Human Predator Pack Mule podcast. Today is another Q&A show, and I got three questions. We're going to talk about whether or not burpees are worth a shit. We're going to talk about why some people can run at high heart rates and maintain it, and even if it seems like they should be aerobically deficient. And we're also going to talk about, I got a question about my layering system, what I would wear for a late October mountain hunt. And I just did a late November or early November mountain hunt at the end of 2024. So I got some intel for you, and I will get to answering all of those questions. First, I want to remind you that you can download our most popular training guide for free. It's the 5 biggest backcountry training mistakes. And I'm going to talk about some training mistakes that people make during this podcast. But it's got great advice on rucking, on strength training, on mental skills, everything that you would need to chip away at preparing for hunting season in one short book. And it'll keep you from making a bunch of mistakes that you don't need to make and delaying your progress. So all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to download that. And again, you get it for free. So if you're not doing that, if you haven't done it yet, go on and do it. So let's jump into the question. So are burpees useless is the question. I think that I'm going to check my notes here if you see me looking down. Burpees are often a movement that burpees are a movement that are selected by someone that has an immature training mind. And so you look at them, you think, oh, well, they move the whole body, they jack the heart rate up, so they must be good. And that's the thought process. Or another thing that people run into is they just don't know how to design effective conditioning. And so they default to exercise, like the exercise zeitgeist and burpees. You see burpees everywhere, right? So it's like, you might as well use those. So I really think burpees are often used by people with an immature training mind, immature trainers that don't have the experience or the knowledge. And that, I mean, inexperience and lack of knowledge isn't just with new trainers. That can apply to trainers that have been around for a long time that just haven't grown as well, So I think it's mostly used by people that don't actually know how to condition people. And so they think burpees are going to be useful, and really all they do is make people tired. So I have some caveats to that. So I think the best way to think about training is in terms of economy and value. So you only have so much time to produce the outcome that you want to produce. So the choices that you make matter, like they matter a whole lot, because you can't waste time doing something that is only going to check one box or isn't going to produce an outcome specific towards the direction that you want to move. And so then the question that you have to ask yourself is like, how many boxes does this exercise check before you use it? And is it going to move you closer to the condition that you want and need? Because if you're choosing an exercise, it means that you're excluding something else. So if you're choosing burpees, it means you're taking away your opportunity to do a different exercise. So you better be real damn sure that you're choosing burpees for a good reason, right? Because there are a lot of other things that are going to be better to do for hunters. I mean, and we talk about checking multiple boxes. So look at something like a box step up. Can you use it to build strength? Absolutely. Can you do it in a way to build mobility and improve mobility? Absolutely. Can you use it to improve your conditioning in multiple ways? Absolutely you can. So that is an exercise that checks a handful of boxes for us. So it's something that we would use in different settings. A burpee, I mean, really the only time that I see it being useful is like if you have a selection course and you know that they're going to hammer you with burpees during the selection course, it's probably worthwhile to do some burpees in your prep to go do that selection course for whatever unit you're trying to get into. Or if you're doing high rocks, you don't really have a choice because it's part of the event. Like you do burpee broad jumps as part of the competition. So you should train that movement to be ready for it. But for general application and for folks like us that hunt, I don't really think they have a purpose. Really, they're typically used just to beat people down and to make them tired. And like I said, it's just for people that don't really know how to condition people. That's typically who chooses to do that. But I mean, you have to think, like I said, you have to think about things in terms of economy and value, because if you're doing burpees, you're not running, you're not rucking, you're not doing some other movement pattern that's more closely associated with what we need to do to get into the condition to hunt. And that's both with strength and aerobically, and be able to handle the environments that you're in. that's taking up time that you could be doing something else that's more appropriate for your longevity, both as a person and as a hunter. So, I just think they typically just elevate the heart rate, and they end up having people do floppy movement that just perpetuate floppy movement. Could you do them well? Sure, you could do them well. But then it just comes back to the question that we started with, is like, why? Why are you doing them? What end do you hope to produce? And realize that if you're making that choice, you're excluding something else. And so you have to really be able to justify that choice. And I don't think that there is a good choice there. I mean, they're kind of an entertainment exercise for some people, and people hate burpees, and so people want to force you to do things that you hate, and some kind of silly bullshit like that. But no, I think I'm not going to say useless, because there could be a time, whenever, that I think of a way or a reason to use burpees other than prepping for some selection course where you're going to have to go through some kind of beat down, or getting ready for an event like High Rocks where you're going to have to do them. So I might think of a use. I mean, if you need to get your heart rate up quickly, they work for that. There are better ways to do it. There are other ways to do it. But if you need to jack your heart rate up, get it into a certain zone, and then go do something, a burpee is going to work to do that. Again, thinking about your time and the economy of your time and the economy of your training and what you're trying to produce, I just don't see where they fit for most things. So I just think it's best to leave them out. We'll say that. I'm not just going to call them silly, but I don't think they have a great amount of use for most applications, especially for hunter. Second question: how can someone that is aerobically deficient maintain a high heart rate while training, exercising, etc.? So if they can, it's because they've likely overtrained their anaerobic glycolytic system. And so that's really the only option they have. So one of the things that we see in aerobically deficient people, so that would be people that have not sufficiently developed their aerobic capacity. So what happens is they tend to overdevelop their anaerobic glycolytic system. So that means up above, around anaerobic threshold. So where your anaerobic system starts to take over too much. And so they can get up there and they can burn really hot, but they don't have the resources to keep their heart rate down and move. And so one of the reasons that people can do that and maybe maintain it for half an hour or whatever it might be is because they've trained themselves to do that. Everything that they've done has jumped to these high heart rates, and they have not trained themselves to keep their heart rate down, is the simplest way to say it. They haven't done the aerobic capacity work, and they haven't gotten efficient with it. And they've just burned themselves to train. They train themselves to burn hot all the time. The problem is, they don't have the ability to repeat that, and they have poor recoverability because they have not developed their aerobic system, which is going to the lower end of their aerobic system. They might have some aerobic power, for sure they will, but they won't recover because they didn't develop their aerobic capacity. And through aerobic capacity training, we develop our recovery system. Okay, and so when we see this, it's a really poor ability to repeat the efforts, and they're going to burn out. And another thing that we see, the second part to this question the person asked, I'm getting ahead of myself, is why is it difficult for a person that's aerobically fit to get their heart rate high and maintain it? And the easiest answer for this is because you just don't need to. You have to look at output, not just heart rate in this instance. So that person with the high heart rates likely can't output the same amount as you while you keep your heart rate down if you have a well-developed aerobic system. It's just because you're more efficient. So it's going to take more effort for you to jack your heart rate up because you function more efficiently. So if you've ever done some blocks of VO2 max training, and I know the person that asked this question has, because he's trained with me for quite a while, you'll remember that, or if you ever do it, you'll notice that during the first week, your heart rate gets pretty high. So VO2 max training is maintaining about your maximal effort around a 9 out of 10 for an extended period of time, somewhere between like 3 and 5 minutes, and then resting for the same amount of time, and then repeating for up to 3 to 6 rounds, something like that would be the workout. And so if you notice, during the first workout, your heart rate gets higher than the rest of the workouts because you get efficient and you have the ability to recover from it because you've done all of the work beforehand, because if you've trained with me, you've done a fair amount of aerobic capacity work before we get into any kind of aerobic power work, which you would do during VO2 max training. And so you'll notice that your heart rate starts to decline throughout the weeks and your output stays high because you're efficient. And so people that get up there and they can maintain those super high heart rates, it's because they're inefficient. They have no other options, and they cannot repeat those efforts back to back to back, or because they just don't have the ability to recover from them. So yeah, you just have more options. And you're more efficient once you develop your aerobic system. So you just don't need to get your heart rate that high. I think that is the easiest answer, because he was saying that, he can get his heart rate up there, but it doesn't stay there. It's because you just don't need to. You can have the same amount of output at a lower heart rate. So your body lets you do that. One of the things that we see with people that also can do this, like burning really hot, is they have a higher incidence of injury. And they just take a really long time to recover. Tissue quality improves. We know this, like muscle, tendon, ligament. Your ability to tissue resiliency and your ability to heal is much better when your aerobic capacity has been developed and fully developed your aerobic system. And so these people that can burn really hot have a higher incidence of injury. It might seem cool for a 30-minute workout or a 45-minute workout, but repeatability is not there. And they're the kind of people that, like, if you go out on a hunt on day one, they look like a monster, but day two, they're falling off and they can't keep up because they didn't develop their aerobic system and the ability to allow themselves to run. So, I think that's all I want to say about that. Yeah. But that's why we spend so much time on aerobic capacity, because it makes us efficient. If you don't have to get your heart rate up, don't. We want to raise the roof of your conditioning, right? Which would be your max heart rate. And we'll do some stuff to do that and to maintain it, because it gives us a bigger house and more heart rate range to work in. But if you can work with the same output and keep your heart rate down, that's what we'll do. And that's always the goal. You want to be able to move efficiently and move a lot while keeping your heart rate down. So just because someone can do that doesn't mean it's a good thing. It's likely that they undertrain one system while overtraining another system. So, last question: layering system for a late October mountain hunt. So I have two prefaces for this. I don't have any associations with any gear companies. I just wear what I like and what fits me and what seems like it's going to work the best for me. So no matter what I say, I'm going to say brands. I'm going to say stuff like that. I'm not being paid to say anything, and I paid for most of it. I'll be honest with you. I got some Sitka stuff sent to me for free, and that I'm going to talk about. But that wasn't necessarily through Sitka, but I didn't pay for that stuff. So I'll let you know that I didn't pay for it. But everything else that I talk about, I bought with my own money, and so I just wanted to preface that. I'm also going to preface by saying, when I tell you what layers I have, that I run pretty freaking hot. So one of my main things is, like, I got to keep my body temperature down. So some people might layer differently than I do, because I run hot. So I get moving and I really start to sweat and stuff. So I also don't get that cold that easily. So it's a good thing, I guess. But there's the two prefaces that I want to give you before I start talking about what I wear. So I'm going to start with my feet. I always wear darn tough socks. I've worn them for quite a while. They have good insulation, good insulative abilities, and also you can beat the absolute piss out of them, and they just don't wear out. They're incredible socks. They have good insulation, and they keep your feet relatively dry. And when you take them off, they dry really fast. So I really like darn tough socks. So in late October, early November, somewhere around there, I'd be wearing like a midweight hunting or hiking, not one of their hunting socks, because their hunting socks are pretty high. Like, I have some that come all the way up to my knee, but one of their midweight hiking socks is what I've been wearing, because if I need to, if I stop hiking, I can kick them off, put on my booties, get those dry. They'll dry fast. I put them back on to keep my feet warm. So I really like darn tough socks. So that'd be the first step of what I would do. Base layer will be depending on the pace of the walking and where I'm walking to. If I got a really big climb, so both base layers that I typically wear are the QUs. I have the QU, I think they're 140 zip offs. And then I think I have the 210 zip offs. I think they're 210, 220. If you look it up, you'll figure out which one I'm talking about. But I typically wear those because I like to be able to layer up or layer down easily. And the QU ones, they had zip offs first, I think, before everybody else did. So that's what I bought. And I've had the same ones for years, and I like them. I haven't worn them out, and I've worn them. Actually, the 140s, I think they're 140s. I wore them for like, I don't know, like 10 days straight in Alaska, and I didn't take them off at all. So it's pretty gnarly, but they held up, and I haven't worn them out. So either one of those. So if it's a gnarly walk, I would probably have on the 140s. I might stop to zip them off at some point. And if it's not that bad, I'd probably keep the 210s, something like that on. And depending on how cold it is, those are the two things. But those would be the two that I would wear. And then my pants, I would either wear a QU attack pant, which I've worn for a long time, and I've always liked because they take a lot of shit and they do really well. Or the Thicket Timberlines. I have a pair of those, which I like. I like the reinforced butt. I like the knees. I like the option for knee pads, especially if I'm just going along to take pictures. If I'm on a photography trip and I'm not hunting, or if it's just a really rocky set of mountains. But if it's photography and I'm like trying to get good angles and stuff, and I have to get down on knees and move around and stuff, I like having the knee pads and the reinforcement in the butt because it keeps me from wearing my pants out. So those would be one of the two pairs of. That's really all I wear. I'll wear the QU pants, or I'll wear the Sitka Timberline. QU attacks, or the Sitka Timberlines. I don't wear heavier pants because, like I said, I run hot. I mean, I know both of those companies, every company makes a heavier winter pant, but I don't get them because they're just going to make me sweat too much. Up top, if it's a really hard hike, no matter how cold it is, I'm typically just going to be in a t-shirt. If it's really, really cold, I might have like a light wool layer on. I have a couple really light QU layers that I put on. I don't remember what weight they are, but like the lightest wool weight that you can get, I have a couple of theirs. So if it's really, really cold, I might have that on. But if it's a hard uphill hike, I'm not going to have much up top because I just get really hot, and then I'll start to sweat. And then as soon as I stop, I start to shiver. The old saying, be bold, walk cold. So I try to do that pretty much in a t-shirt or a very, very, very light wool layer if it's cold enough, or I just want to cover my arms, So that's typically what I have up top. If I slow down and sit, I have a Sitka, one of their like 330 pullovers, 330 merino wool pullovers that I like, and I will put that on when I sit down. And then I put a QU element jacket over top of it. I like that because it has a wind layer. The insulation's pretty good, and it's tough. It's really tough to tear up. And so like if you're laying back on rocks or something like that, a lot of the puffies that you would see might be better insulation than that. I mean, like I said, I run hot and I don't need quite as much insulation, but they tear so easily. And I tore my QU element on the rust on my buddy's truck when I ripped away, but like I've laid on it in rocks and all kinds of stuff, and I've never damaged the coat doing something silly like that. So I really like that jacket, and I wear it around town, and I wear it and stuff all the time too. And then I have a Sitka soft shell that I'll put over top of that if I want an extra layer to keep things in. I don't remember what it's called. I don't remember which one it is. That's what I would put on top. And if it's really, really cold and I'm sitting down, I will put on the First Light Klamath. I don't know how you say that. It's their fleece layer for the hood. I'll put that over top of the 330. I'll put the Element jacket on, and then I'll put the Sitka jacket on. And that works for me if I'm just sitting still. And I also carry a pair of the First Light Uncompadre pants. And if I'm sitting and glassing or something, I'll put those on over top of my regular hunting pants to stay warm. So, and then for rain gear, I use the Stone Glacier M5 stuff. I think they have M7 or something now, but I like the M5 stuff because it's light. I've never had a problem with it soaking through. I do retreat it and take care of it, but it's light, so it keeps, like I said, it keeps me from sweating. I've tried heavier stuff, and it's too hot for me. So I like that because it's light, it's breathable, but it still keeps me pretty dry. And then for gloves, if I'm just running my camera, I wear the Sims, like I think they call them Sims paws, like the wool gloves with the fingers cut out. I'll wear those so I can manage my camera. Otherwise, I wear the First Light Shale gloves. I really like those, the leather glove, wool and leather gloves that they have. And then I have some heavy ass mittens that I bought in some ski shop a long time ago. That if it's really, really cold, I'll put those on. But that's how I layer, nothing crazy. And I pretty much do the same thing all the time, and it works. And so, yeah, that's it. So that's my layering system. Those are the things that that's just the gear that I keep with me. I would have for a mountain hunt, late October, early November, somewhere in there, probably even into December, depending on where it's at. But that's what I would use for a late October mountain hunt. So again, to recap, if you're thinking about burpees, you have to think about what you're trying to produce and the economy of time and the economy of effort that you're going to spend on trying to produce the outcome that you're going to produce. I think you'll find that burpees don't really have a place in most training exercise, in most training programs, unless someone has a very immature training process and they're just trying to make you tired. Why heart rates? The biggest thing with people that can get their heart rate up and keep it there is because they've likely overtrained one energy system and undertrained another. And so being able to sustain work at threshold, that's something for all of us to be able to do, right? But if you have it way jacked up, but those people have higher instances of injury, soft tissue injury, they don't recover as well between bouts in a training session, and they don't recover between sessions as much. And if your heart rate can stay down while you have more output, that's really what we're after anyway, okay? So that's it for this episode. Again, you can download a free copy of 5 Biggest Backcountry Training Mistakes by clicking the link in the show notes, and that'll help you avoid a lot of mistakes. And that also puts you on a newsletter list. I email out 5 tips every week, tips, stories, things to help you with your training, and just hunting stories, because that's why we hunt, right? We hunt to be able to tell a good story. So click the link in the show notes, download a free copy of 5 Biggest Backcountry Training Mistakes. It's our most popular training guide, and then I'll see you on the newsletter list.